What's up, guys? I'm James Withy, and today we're going to talk about whether or not it's a good idea to smoke weed before you get tattooed. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about the marijuana and how it affects the whole tattoo process from the client perspective. So before I start the video, let me just throw my fucking disclaimer out there. I'm going to tell you guys that I do not condone the illegal use of drugs. Me personally, I do smoke bud, but I do have a medical card for it. I have 3 herniated discs in my neck. And that is my official medical reason for why I smoke weed, because it helps alleviate the pain associated with those discs. So now that I've disclosed the fact that I do have a prescription for marijuana, let me go ahead and let you guys know that the opinions in this video that I'm going to be expressing are largely based on my own experience with what it feels like for me to smoke weed and get tattooed, and also what I've observed in my clients when they've smoked weed and gotten tattooed. So the reason I'm making this video is because I made another video called Tattoo Pain Explained, in which I discuss, exactly what tattoos feel like and how much they hurt. And in the comments of that video, I got quite a few people that asked me whether or not smoking bud does in fact help alleviate the pain that's associated with tattooing. So in this video, I'm going to go ahead and do my best to answer that question. And I'm also going to give you guys some tips on how to do it right if you do decide you want to experiment around with it and smoke some weed before you get a tattoo. So first things first, does smoking weed help to reduce the amount of pain that you feel when you get a tattoo? The short answer from my perspective is no. It does not reduce the amount of pain that you feel when you get a tattoo. I know that everybody's different on this. There's probably people out there that might disagree with me. From their perspective, it definitely does help to reduce the amount of pain. But for me personally, it doesn't help at all with the pain. However, it does help me sit quite a bit better when I'm getting the tattoo. What I mean by that is that smoking weed makes it a lot easier for me to sit there in the chair for long periods of time without feeling bored. So, as far as tattoos go, for me personally, I feel like the excitement of getting a tattoo wears off once I'm like half an hour or an hour into it. And it starts to get to the point where I feel like hella restless sitting in the chair, and I'm just like, fuck, man, like I could be doing shit right now. I should be doing stuff. I feel like I'm one of those people that constantly has to be productive. I'm always up to something. I'm always in motion doing things. So anytime you ask me to sit still for very long periods of time and do absolutely nothing, that shit is kind of hard for me. So I feel like one of the things that makes it easier is smoking weed. A really great example of that would be like if I'm playing video games or something like that. I kind of run into the same situation where if I'm sober, I can play video games for maybe 20 or 30 minutes, and after a while I'm just sitting there and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing, man? I gotta go do shit, I gotta get my hustle on, I gotta get out there, I gotta be productive, right? But if I'm smoking bud, I feel like I could sit there for hours and hours and hours and play video games if I let myself, and I really don't get bored, and I can just be content doing that for very long periods of time. So that same feeling happens when I get tattooed. But the difference is when I'm getting tattooed, I need to sit there for a long period of time. It's not just a recreational activity. It's something where I'm permanently modifying the appearance of my body. And I feel like that restlessness is just a little bit of an annoying thing that can be suppressed quite a bit by smoking pot. Another benefit that smoking weed before a tattoo appointment has for me personally is that it greatly reduces my urge to control the situation. So my personality type, I tend to be the kind of person that wants to lead in every situation I'm in. I want creative control over everything. I want to call all the shots, that sort of thing. And probably even more so with tattooing because I am a tattoo artist. So it's really hard for me to sit on the sidelines without being like, hey, maybe you should try it this way or compose the shit that way. What about these color combinations? That's one of the annoying traits that a lot of clients have, from the tattoo artist perspective. We don't like it when clients try to fucking control things because it kind of impedes our ability to work to our fullest potential in terms of, planning out how we're going to execute everything from start to finish, and translating something from our mind to the skin in a really effective way. So for me personally, I feel like it makes me a better client if I get stoned before my tattoo appointment. So like I said, even though smoking weed doesn't really change the way the tattoo feels or reduce the amount of pain that I'm experiencing, it does improve the experience overall for me because it helps me kind of get into a more calm state of mind that allows me to relax during the entire process and kind of submit more to the situation, if that makes sense. Now, everybody's gonna have a little bit of a different experience, like I said earlier. Some people are gonna experience total pain relief if they smoke weed and get a tattoo, and it's gonna be like a night and day difference for them as far as what they feel. But on the other end of that spectrum, there are gonna be some people that feel even more pain than normal if they smoke weed before they get a tattoo. So that's probably, one of the most important things to take away from this video is that if you do smoke weed before a tattoo and you've never done that before, it is a risk, and there is some chance that you're gonna end up feeling, a lot more discomfort than you would if you were sober. So, for that reason, I wouldn't recommend anybody get a tattoo for their first time and smoke weed. I feel like it's something that if you do experiment with it, you should be somebody that's experienced with both getting a tattoo and with smoking weed. That way you're kind of eliminating any variables that are unnecessary that are out there that might ruin your experience. On that note, I'm gonna go ahead and roll into the next part of this video, which is where I give you guys some tips for success if you do decide you wanna experiment around with this. Now, the first tip I can give you guys is that if you have access to multiple strains, you wanna pick a strain that's high in CBD but low in THC. And the reason why is because CBD is the cannabinoid in weed that has the most pain relieving properties. So this one's heavily associated with like reduction in inflammation, reduction in pain. And if you're trying to do this because you want to reduce the amount of pain that you feel during a tattoo, that's the ingredient that you want the most of in your weed. So conversely, THC is what you want the least of in your weed if you're going to try to go for pain reduction. And the reason why is because THC is like the one that gets you high and has the most psychoactive properties out of all the cannabinoids. And THC can probably cause like a little bit more of like a psychedelic experience where it's going to give you more anxiety or have a lot higher likelihood of giving you more anxiety than like a CBD dominant strain. So, another tip I can give you guys is that you want to roll with an indica rather than a sativa. And the reason why is because indica is commonly referred to as like the couch lock weed that just makes it so you want to sit there and relax and do nothing for long periods of time, whereas sativa is the type of weed that makes you more energetic and you want to go do shit. Earlier I told you guys that one of the main benefits of smoking weed before you get a tattoo is that it helps you sit there for long periods of time without getting bored. And I feel like the indica would do a much better job of this than the sativa. The second tip that I'm gonna give you guys is that you wanna avoid smoking weed immediately before your tattoo appointment. And the reason why is because earlier I told you guys that one of the negative effects that might happen if you smoke weed while getting a tattoo is that you might feel like increased anxiety. So when you smoke bud, the most anxiety you're ever gonna feel is like during the first 15 to 30 minutes while that bud is kicking in and that weed's taking its effect. In addition to that, when you're getting a tattoo, the most anxiety you're ever gonna feel is also within the first 15 to 30 minutes or whatever, when the needle first hits your skin and you're kind of getting used to the situation psychologically. So what you want to avoid is like those two things overlapping and your anxiety being compounded because you're kind of having two anxious factors like feeding into each other at the same time. So it's a really smart idea to smoke weed like maybe half an hour or an hour before you get to your tattoo appointment, or maybe wait until you're half an hour or an hour into your tattoo appointment before you take a break and smoke some weed. The last tip that I'm gonna give you guys is to be very careful with your dosage. You don't want to overdo this shit. Weed is not the fucking cure-all that everybody makes it out to be, and it's not gonna take away 100% of the pain or discomfort that you experience during the tattoo process. You want to be really careful not to, smoke too much, because even though you can't overdose on weed and you can't die from the shit, definitely it will make it worse if you smoke hella fucking weed or eat like really strong edibles and then you're too high for your tattoo session, because you're gonna be bugging out not only from the weed, but from the tattoo too. So like I said, you don't wanna compound that fucking anxiety. You wanna make sure that you're, doing this shit in moderation and experimenting in a way where you're erring on the side of caution. So on that note, it's also, probably worth mentioning that you should talk to a fucking doctor before you even smoke weed before you get a tattoo, because, even though I've never heard of anything, that doesn't necessarily mean that there are no health risks whatsoever associated with this sort of activity. So do so at your own risk. I'm not a doctor. I'm not right here on YouTube prescribing you guys or like ordering you guys to smoke 2 joints, get a tattoo, and call me in the morning or some shit like that. I'm just giving you guys insight from my own personal experience on whether or not smoking weed has helped me cope with, the situation of getting a tattoo. In addition to that, a lot of this information is based on what I've discussed with my clients. From the tattoo artist perspective, I talk to my clients and shit about whether or not this sort of thing helps them. A lot of them like to smoke bud when they're getting tattooed by me, and that's totally fine with me. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and hit the like button below. And also, if you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing, if you guys like tattoo related educational content. And also, if you guys have any experiences that you would like to share with us in the comments, please do so, because this stuff does vary quite a bit from person to person. And I feel like the more experiences we have shared in the comments, the better chance it's gonna give somebody that's never tried this and is legally able to use marijuana to decide whether or not they wanna go ahead and give this stuff a shot to make their tattoo experience better. So with that said, I hope you guys have a great night. Thanks for watching. See you later.